Humans are the only animals that can lie perfectly still, completely safe, surrounded by comfort, and yet feel deeply tired. Not because the body is weak, but because the mind won't turn off. Evolution never designed us to rest when we have everything we need. Our nervous system was built in a world where staying still meant danger, silence meant being easy to attack, and doing nothing often meant dying. So even when we no longer need to fight to survive, the brain keeps using energy as if something has been lost, forgotten, or is about to go wrong. We carry old alertness into a modern world that doesn't need it anymore, and that difference quietly drains us. This tiredness doesn't come from doing things, but from being aware itself, from always living inside a mind that never stops looking for meaning, threats, and questions that aren't finished. So if rest is everywhere now and survival isn't the problem anymore, why does simply being human still feel so tiring? The human nervous system wasn't built for comfort, quiet rooms, or long hours of stillness. And this matters more than most people think when they wonder why they feel tired even while doing nothing. For most of human history, rest was short, light, and dangerous. Because the world was full of quiet threats that could show up without warning. A resting body was an easy target, and a sleeping mind could mean death. So the brain learned a simple rule very early on. Staying alert was safer than relaxing too much. That rule became wired into the nervous system long before houses, beds, or peaceful nights existed. Even when the body stopped moving, the brain stayed active, watching the environment, listening for danger, and getting ready for sudden action. This design helped early humans survive, but it also came with a hidden cost that still follows us today. The modern world may feel safe, but the nervous system doesn't update itself quickly, and it still acts as if safety is temporary and rest must be earned. This is why doing nothing doesn't feel normal to the human brain. Stillness doesn't mean peace. It means not knowing what's coming. When the body slows down, the brain doesn't see this as permission to rest. Instead, it fills the silence with thoughts, memories, and imagined problems because silence once meant being exposed. This constant low-level alertness uses energy even when there is no physical movement at all. Over time, that energy drain feels like tiredness. Not the sharp tiredness of hard work, but a dull heaviness that settles in without a clear reason. The body may be relaxed, but the nervous system is quietly working in the background, staying in a state of readiness that no longer has a clear purpose. This isn't a flaw in modern people. It's a leftover survival pattern from a time when human life depended on never fully letting go. The brain learned to connect safety with movement, watching, and staying busy, not with rest. And that connection never disappeared. So when a modern human sits still, lies down, or pauses for too long, the nervous system doesn't switch off. It keeps checking, keeps preparing, and keeps spending energy as if something important might happen next. This is why mental tiredness can appear without effort, without stress, and without visible struggle. It comes from carrying an old alert system into a world that no longer needs it. The feeling of being tired while doing nothing isn't laziness, and it isn't weakness. It's the quiet weight of a nervous system that was designed for survival, not peace. And that design continues to shape how rest feels to the human mind today. The nervous system doesn't measure safety the way modern humans think it does. And this misunderstanding sits at the center of why rest often feels tiring instead of refreshing. For early humans, safety wasn't a stable condition that could be assumed and forgotten. It was temporary, fragile, and constantly changing. A quiet moment could mean nothing was happening, or it could mean something dangerous was getting closer. Because of this uncertainty, the brain learned to treat calm not as relief, but as a moment that needed closer attention. This is why stillness turns on thought instead of shutting it down. When the body stops moving, the nervous system increases internal activity, filling the space with mental scanning, remembering past dangers, and imagining possible outcomes. None of this is conscious choice. It's an automatic response shaped by thousands of generations who survived by never fully relaxing dots in that old world. Doing nothing was rarely normal. It either meant hiding, waiting, or not knowing what was coming next. The brain adapted to assume that not moving required watching, not giving up. This pattern became deeply stuck in human biology, long before language, culture, or complex tools appeared. Even now, when physical threats are rare, the nervous system still follows the same old rule. It treats quiet as a signal to check inside for problems. That internal checking uses energy. It keeps muscles slightly tight, thoughts lightly active, and attention loosely busy. Over hours and days, this low-level activation becomes tiring, even though the person may feel like they have done nothing at all. Around the middle of human evolution, when early humans began spending more time planning, remembering, and guessing what would happen rather than reacting instantly, this internal activity grew even stronger. The brain expanded not only to solve problems, but to practice them in advance. This ability helped humans survive complex environments, but it also increased the cost of mental rest. A mind that can imagine future danger doesn't easily power down. It keeps running scenarios quietly, in the background, even during moments of physical comfort. This is why lying on a bed, sitting in a chair, or staring at a wall can feel strangely draining. The body has stopped, but the brain is still doing what it evolved to do: prepare. His preparation no longer has a clear target, so it turns inward. Thoughts circle, memories come up. Small worries feel bigger than they should. None of this feels dramatic, but all of it uses energy. This isn't a problem. It's the natural behavior of a nervous system that was built to survive uncertainty, not to enjoy ease. Modern life offers safety without effort. But the human nervous system doesn't recognize effort-free safety as complete safety. It waits for proof that never comes. So it keeps working. It keeps checking. It keeps burning energy quietly. This is why mental tiredness often appears without stress, without sadness, and without physical strain. It comes from carrying an old survival engine into a world that no longer needs constant readiness. The tiredness people feel while doing nothing is the body paying the ongoing cost of a nervous system that never learned how to truly stop. Because for most of human history, stopping completely was never an option. The final layer of this first part is where the old nervous system meets the modern idea of rest, and where the quiet tiredness of doing nothing becomes fully visible. For most of human history, rest wasn't something you chose. It was something forced by darkness, injury, or exhaustion, and it never lasted long. Even moments of pause were shallow because the environment demanded readiness. This trained the nervous system to connect true safety not with stillness but with control and awareness. When early humans stopped moving, they didn't stop paying attention. They listened more closely. They watched more carefully. They stayed half ready to react. Over thousands of generations, this pattern became normal. The brain learned that letting go completely was risky. So, it never developed a clear-off switch. In the modern world, people try to rest in ways that look logical to the body, but feel confusing to the nervous system. Sitting quietly, lying down during the day, or doing nothing at all sends mixed signals. The muscles relax, but the brain doesn't get a clear message that the environment is secure. There's no natural signal that says the struggle is over. No sunset that forces rest. No shared group watching that allows one person to sleep deeply. Instead, the individual is alone, with a brain that evolved to stay alert when alone. So, the nervous system fills the gap. It creates thoughts, replays experiences, and looks for something that needs attention. This internal activity is subtle, but it's constant, and it costs energy. That cost is felt as tiredness without effort. Around the beginning of modern humans, when social groups became more complex and individuals had to rely more on internal judgment rather than immediate physical signals, this problem got worse. The brain took on more responsibility for watching safety, status, and direction. That responsibility didn't disappear when the physical world became easier. It stayed. Today, when a person does nothing, the nervous system sees the lack of outside. Demands as a moment to turn inward and review everything that might matter. This review has no clear end point. There's always something unfinished, something uncertain, something that could be improved or avoided. The nervous system treats these mental possibilities the same way it once treated physical threats. It stays busy over time. This creates a background tiredness that feels different from physical exhaustion. It's not sharp or urgent. It's dull, continuing, and difficult to explain. People often blame themselves for it, thinking they're weak or unmotivated. But this tiredness isn't a personal failure. It's the predictable outcome of a system designed for survival in a dangerous world. Now placed in an environment where danger is rare but mental activity is endless. The nervous system never learned how to rest without outside permission. Because for most of human existence that permission never came. So even now when nothing is required, the system keeps working. It keeps watching. It keeps preparing. And the energy it spends doing this becomes the quiet tiredness that follows modern humans into their moments of stillness. Awareness isn't a free upgrade in human evolution. And this is where tiredness begins to move beyond the body and settle deeply into the mind. Long before humans built tools or stories, awareness served one clear purpose: to notice changes that might signal danger or opportunity. Early awareness was simple and practical. It helped humans detect movement, sounds, and patterns that mattered for survival. But as the human brain slowly grew more complex, awareness expanded beyond the present moment. Humans became able to observe not only the world around them, but also their own thoughts, memories, and emotions. This shift changed everything. Awareness stopped being just a survival tool and became a constant internal observer. From that point on, humans were no longer simply living. They were watching themselves live. This internal watching needs energy. A mind that is aware doesn't simply react and move on. It thinks, compares, judges, and questions. Even when the body is still, awareness keeps working. It notices time passing. It notices sensations. It notices the absence of activity. For early humans, this self-awareness helped with learning and adapting. But it also created a new kind of mental load. The brain now had to manage not just the environment but the experience of being a human within it. Awareness doesn't sleep just because the body rests. It stays alert to internal signals the same way it once stayed alert to outside threats. Hunger, discomfort, boredom, and uncertainty all become objects of attention. Each one pulls energy. Over thousands of years, this constant internal watching became normal. The human mind learned to stay lightly busy at all times because awareness once meant control and control meant survival. In the modern world, this same awareness continues even when survival no longer depends on it. When a person lies down to rest, awareness doesn't fade. It turns inward. It notices thoughts drifting. It notices the body breathing. It notices time slowing. Instead of resting, the mind quietly judges the experience of resting. This judgment uses energy. It creates a sense of mental activity without visible appearance. People often describe this as feeling tired but unable to explain why. There's no task to point to, no effort to measure. The tiredness comes from continued awareness itself. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. A fully unconscious mind was once dangerous. Awareness kept humans alive in uncertain conditions. But awareness was never meant to run continuously in a safe environment with no clear endpoint. The modern human mind does exactly that. It stays aware without a clear purpose, without resolution, and without rest. This is why mental tiredness can appear even in calm moments. Awareness keeps the nervous system slightly activated, slightly busy, slightly prepared. Over time, this becomes draining. The cost of awareness isn't dramatic or immediate. It builds, quietly hour by hour, day by day. The human brain pays this cost simply by being aware of itself. This isn't the problem. It's the natural outcome of an evolutionary shift that gave humans the ability to think, plan, and imagine. But that ability came with a price. Awareness expanded human potential. But it also created a form of tiredness that no amount of physical rest alone can fully solve. As awareness deepened in human evolution, it began to change not only what humans noticed, but how long they stayed with what they noticed. And this extended attention became another quiet source of tiredness. Early awareness was brief and reactive. A sound was heard, a movement was seen, a response followed. But as the human brain developed the ability to hold ideas in mind, awareness stopped passing quickly. Thoughts could be revisited. Memories could be replayed. Possible futures could be imagined again and again. This ability helped humans learn from experience. But it also removed the natural ending point of mental activity. Awareness no longer faded when a situation ended. It stayed. The brain began to practice events long after they were over and to prepare for events that might never happen. This shift created a new kind of effort that required no movement at all. The body could be still, but awareness could remain busy for hours. From an evolutionary point of view, this made sense. A mind that reviewed past mistakes and guessed future danger had a better chance of survival. But this process demanded energy, and that demand never fully turned off. Awareness became something that ran in the background even during moments of rest. Over time, the brain learned to treat awareness itself as a responsibility. To be aware meant to be ready to stop paying attention felt unsafe. This is why modern humans often feel uneasy when their mind begins to quiet. The nervous system sees reduced awareness as a loss of control. So awareness returns on its own, bringing thoughts, images, and concerns back into focus. This cycle is subtle and automatic. People rarely notice it happening, but they feel its effect as mental tiredness. The mind has been active without clear purpose for too long. As human societies became more complex, awareness expanded again. Humans became aware not only of physical danger, but of social position, expectations, and future outcomes. The mind began to track abstract threats that had no clear shape or timeline. Unlike physical danger, these threats couldn't be solved by action. They could only be thought about. Awareness stayed busy because there was nothing to finish. This created a form of mental tension that never fully released. Even in moments of safety, awareness kept checking for meaning, direction, and reassurance. This checking needed energy, but it didn't feel like work. It felt like thinking. When modern humans lie down and do nothing, awareness doesn't disappear. It scans inward. It notices thoughts drifting, then judges them. It notices sensations, then labels them. It notices time passing, then reacts to it. Each of these actions is small, but together they form a steady drain. The body rests, but awareness remains active. This is why rest often feels incomplete. Physical comfort alone doesn't satisfy a system that evolved to stay mentally busy. The tiredness that follows isn't caused by effort, but by continued attention without resolution. Awareness was never meant to work continuously without outside demand. In the modern world, it does exactly that. It stays on quietly, using energy even when nothing is needed. This is why humans can feel tired after a day of doing very little. Awareness has been working the entire time, keeping a level of mental presence that once helped humans survive, but now quietly exhausts them. The final part of this section brings awareness to its quiet end, showing how a system designed to notice everything slowly becomes a source of tiredness when there's nothing left to respond to. In early human life, awareness always pointed outward. There was something to watch, something to track, something that needed a decision. Awareness had direction, and direction gave it purpose. When a threat passed or an action was taken, attention naturally shifted or faded. But as human awareness turned inward, it lost that clear endpoint. The mind began to observe itself without a signal telling it when to stop. This self-observation became continuous. Thoughts were noticed, then judged. Feelings were felt, then examined. Silence itself became something to be aware of. This created a loop that didn't exist in earlier stages of human evolution. Awareness was no longer just a tool. It became an environment the human mind lived inside. Living inside awareness costs energy. A mind that constantly notices itself never fully relaxes. It stays slightly busy, slightly active, even in moments meant for rest. From the beginning of this shift, humans carried a new kind of burden. They were no longer only responding to life. They were interpreting it at all times. This interpretation Needed effort, even when it felt passive, with no outside task to focus on. The mind turned inward and made small sensations, minor thoughts, and vague concerns bigger. This is why stillness can feel uncomfortable and tiring. Awareness fills the empty space with mental activity because it was never designed to sit idle. In the modern world, people often try to rest by removing stimulation. They turn off screens, lie down, and seek quiet. But for a mind shaped by evolution, to stay alert, the absence of stimulation doesn't mean rest, It means there's more room for awareness to work. The mind begins to watch breathing, posture, thoughts, and time itself. Each act of noticing is small, but together they keep mental activity going. This activity uses energy without producing action. The result is a feeling of tiredness that has no obvious cause. People may think they have rested, yet they feel drained. The awareness system has been running the entire time. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. A mind that lost awareness completely was once at risk. So, awareness learned to stay present no matter what. It learned to fill silence, to occupy stillness, and to remain lightly busy. That strategy kept humans alive. But it also removed the natural boundary between activity and rest. Awareness became constant, and constant awareness became costly. This is the final reason awareness contributes so strongly to feeling tired while doing nothing. It doesn't know how to stop on its own. It waits for a reason to turn off. But modern life rarely provides one. So it stays on quietly, using energy, shaping a form of tiredness that feels invisible, but deeply human. Memory was never meant to be a place humans lived inside. Yet this is exactly where much of modern tiredness begins. In early human life, memory had a simple function. It helped people remember where danger had appeared, where food had been found, and which actions had led to survival. Once a situation ended, memory faded into the background. It waited quietly until it was needed again. But as the human brain evolved, memory changed. It became richer, more detailed, and more emotional. Humans gained the ability to replay experiences long after they were over, to imagine how things could have gone differently, and to store events not just as facts but as personal meaning. This expansion gave humans a powerful advantage, but it also removed memory's natural limit. Memory stopped being something the brain used occasionally. It became something the mind returned to constantly. This shift created a new kind of mental activity that didn't depend on the present moment. The body could be safe, still, and comfortable. Yet memory could pull the mind backward in time. It could bring back old fears, unfinished moments, and unsolved questions. From an evolutionary perspective, this made sense. Remembering mistakes helped avoid repeating them. Remembering danger increased caution. But this system was designed for a world where threats were immediate and resolution came through action. In the modern world, memory often has no action to lead to. It replays without release. This replay uses energy. Each remembered moment activates the nervous system in small ways. Muscles tighten slightly. Emotions shift. Attention narrows. Even when a person is lying down and doing nothing, memory can recreate situations that once needed effort or alertness. The brain responds as if something is happening now, even when it's not. Over time, this constant background replay becomes tiring. The tiredness doesn't feel dramatic. It feels dull and continuing, as if the mind has been working quietly all day. This is because human memory was never designed to work continuously without purpose. It was meant to guide action, not to loop endlessly. As humans became more socially complex, memory took on an even heavier role. People began remembering not only physical events but social interactions, words spoken, expressions seen, and judgments imagined. These memories didn't fade easily because they affected belonging and status, which were critical to survival. The brain learned to keep these memories active just in case they were needed again. This kept humans socially aware, but it also kept memory switched on. Today, when a person rests, memory doesn't rest with them. It brings up pieces of the past without invitation. It revisits conversations. It recalls mistakes. It brings up moments that no longer matter physically, but still carry emotional weight. Each recall costs energy, even if it feels passive. This is why mental tiredness can feel heavier after periods of stillness. With no outside task to focus on, memory fills the space. It replays the past because that's what it evolved to do. When nothing else demands attention, the human brain carries memory as a survival tool. But it now uses it in a world where survival rarely needs constant review of the past. The result is a quiet tiredness that comes not from effort, but from remembering without resolution. As memory grew stronger in the human brain, it stopped acting like a simple storage system and began behaving more like an active process. And this shift added another layer to human tiredness. Early memory was practical. It stored what was necessary and released what was no longer useful. But as humans developed language, imagination, and social awareness, memory became tied to identity. Experiences were no longer just events. They became stories about who a person was, what they had lost, and what they feared repeating. This made memory harder to silence. When memory carries personal meaning, it doesn't wait quietly. It looks for attention. It pulls the mind back to moments that shape survival, belonging, or self-worth. This pull happens automatically, even during rest. The brain scans stored experiences for patterns that might still matter. From an evolutionary point of view, this behavior was protective. A human who remembered social rejection or past danger could avoid similar situations in the future, but this protection came at a cost. Memory began to stay active even when there was no immediate threat. The nervous system responded to remembered events as if they were still important. Heart rate changed slightly, muscles held tension. Emotions came back. All of this needed energy. The body remained still, but the internal system stayed busy. Over time, this involvement became a steady drain rather than a sharp response. Human memory also lost its clear boundary between past and present. The brain doesn't strongly tell the difference between something happening now and something vividly remembered. Both activate similar pathways. This means that recalling a stressful moment can quietly recreate the body state connected with it. When memory loops, the nervous system repeatedly enters mild alert mode without outside cause. This is tiring in a subtle way. The person may not feel stressed, yet they feel tired. The effort is invisible, but it's constant. As humans became more thoughtful, memory expanded again. People began revisiting events not to learn from them, but to judge them. Memory turned into evaluation. What should have been done differently? What was said wrong? What might still be at risk? This self-review had survival value in early social groups where mistakes could threaten inclusion, but modern life rarely provides closure for these evaluations. There's no clear signal that says the review is complete. So memory keeps working, it keeps presenting old material for inspection. During moments of rest when outside demands are low, memory becomes louder. The mind fills the quiet with familiar scenes, because it's trained to use the past to prepare for the future. This preparation once needed action. Now it often has nowhere to go. The energy spent remembering doesn't lead to resolution. It leads to tiredness. This is why people often feel more tired after lying still than after general activity. Movement gives memory less space. Stillness gives it room to work. Memory was designed to support survival, not to occupy rest. But in the modern human mind, it does exactly that. It stays active, quietly using energy, replaying the past without clear purpose. The tiredness that follows isn't caused by effort or emotion alone. It's the cost of carrying a memory system that no longer knows when to stop. The final part of this section shows how memory, once a tool for survival, becomes a constant presence that quietly drains energy when it no longer has a clear task. In early human life, memory always pointed toward action. A remembered danger led to avoidance. A remembered success led to repetition. Memory had direction, and direction allowed it to rest once a response was chosen. But as human life became less immediately dangerous and more mentally complex, memory lost that direction. It continued to present information, but there was often nothing to do with it. The brain kept memories active without resolution. This is where tiredness settles in. Memory doesn't simply store the past. It reactivates it. Each time a memory comes up, the nervous system responds as if something important is happening. Even mild memories trigger small changes in attention, posture, and emotion. Over time, these small responses add up. The body remains still, but the internal system keeps adjusting. This adjustment costs energy. In the modern world, memory also competes with rest. When a person lies down to do nothing, memory fills the space that action once occupied. There's no clear signal telling the brain that review is no longer needed. So it continues. It replays moments that feel unfinished. Because unfinished situations once needed caution, the brain treats unsolved memories as open threats, even when they no longer affect survival. This keeps the nervous system lightly activated. The tiredness that follows feels vague and hard to explain because it doesn't come from effort in the present. It comes from effort spent responding to the past. Another important shift happened. When humans began living longer and carrying more experiences across time, memory grew heavier, simply because there was more to remember. The brain didn't evolve a system to selectively rest memory during safety. It evolved to keep information in case it became useful again. During periods of no activity, this built-up memory becomes more noticeable. The mind drifts backward because there's no immediate task pulling it forward. This backward drift feels natural to the brain, but it keeps awareness busy. Awareness plus memory creates a closed loop. Awareness notices memory. Memory feeds awareness. The loop continues without outside input. This loop is tiring. It keeps mental activity alive when the body expects rest. People often describe this as feeling worn out without knowing why. There's no single thought to blame. There's no clear stressor. The tiredness comes from the system itself running without pause. From an evolutionary standpoint, this was never a problem. Early humans rarely had long periods of safe stillness. Memory had frequent chances to discharge through action. Modern humans have many quiet moments with no physical demand. In those moments, memory has nowhere to go. It stays active. It keeps searching for importance. It keeps using energy. Movement gives memory an outlet. Stillness leaves it looping. A human brain carries a memory system designed for survival across uncertainty. In a stable world, that system becomes a source of quiet tiredness. Memory doesn't know the danger is gone. It only knows how to remember. And remembering without resolution becomes one of the deepest reasons humans feel tired even when they do nothing. The human brain didn't evolve to predict the future for comfort or control, but for survival. And this ability quietly drains energy even when nothing is happening. Early humans lived in environments where danger rarely announced itself. A predator could appear suddenly. Food could disappear without warning. Weather could shift quickly. Those who survived were often the ones who could sense patterns early and prepare before a threat fully arrived. This is where future-oriented thinking began. The brain learned to look ahead, to imagine what might happen next, and to adjust behavior in advance. At first, this ability was simple and tied closely to the environment. But as human thinking grew, guessing what would happen expanded far beyond immediate survival. Humans began imagining futures that weren't directly connected to present danger. They planned days ahead, seasons ahead, and eventually lives ahead. This shift changed how energy was used in the brain. Guessing what would happen became a continuous process rather than a temporary one. The nervous system learned to stay slightly activated, preparing for outcomes that might never occur. This preparation uses energy even in stillness. From an evolutionary perspective, this made sense. A human who prepared early had a better chance of survival. But this system was designed for a world where future threats were concrete and limited. Modern humans live in environments where future possibilities are endless and abstract. the brain still treats these imagined futures as meaningful. It runs simulations quietly in the background, checking scenarios, outcomes, and risks. Each simulation costs energy. The body may be resting, but the brain is practicing. This is why people often feel mentally tired without physical cause. The effort isn't visible because it's internal. Guessing what will happen doesn't require movement, it requires attention. As humans became more socially complex, guessing what would happen expanded again. People began anticipating social outcomes, reactions, judgments, and consequences. These futures were harder to resolve because they depended on other minds. There was no clear signal that preparation was complete, so guessing what would happen continued. The brain stayed alert, waiting for information that would confirm safety. In early human groups, this watching protected belonging and cooperation. In modern life, it often has no clear endpoint. The nervous system remains busy because the future never fully arrives. This creates a background tension that feels like tiredness. The mind is busy preparing even when nothing is demanded in the present. When a modern human sits still or lies down, guessing what will happen doesn't stop. With fewer outside distractions, the brain turns more fully toward imagined futures. It reviews possibilities, worries about outcomes, and considers what might be needed next. This activity feels passive, but it uses energy steadily. The tiredness that follows isn't dramatic or urgent. It's a low-level drain that builds quietly. Guessing what will happen was never meant to work continuously without resolution. It was meant to guide action and then rest. In a world where action is often delayed or unnecessary, guessing what will happen remains active without release. This is the first reason future-oriented thinking contributes so strongly to feeling tired while doing nothing. The human brain keeps preparing for a future that doesn't arrive, and the energy spent waiting becomes tiredness. As guessing what would happen became more complex in human evolution, it slowly separated from direct action. And this separation made it far more tiring than it was ever meant to be in early human life. Guessing the future usually led to immediate movement. If danger was expected, the body prepared to run or hide. If food was expected, the group moved toward it. Guessing what would happen ended when action began. That natural release allowed the nervous system to settle again. But as human societies grew and environments became more stable, guessing what would happen no longer needed quick physical response. The brain began preparing for futures that were distant, uncertain, and abstract. There was no clear moment when preparation could stop. The nervous system stayed active because it didn't know when the imagined future would arrive or if it ever would. This constant readiness used energy without providing relief. The brain was working, but the body remained still. Over time, this created a steady form of mental tiredness. Human guessing what would happen also changed in another important way. It became layered. Instead of imagining one outcome, the brain began running many possibilities at once. What if this happens? What if it doesn't? What if something goes wrong later? This branching future thinking had survival value in uncertain environments, but it multiplied the amount of mental effort needed. Each imagined path demanded attention, none of them could be solved in the present moment. The nervous system responded by staying lightly tense, prepared for all possibilities at once. This tension is subtle. People often don't notice it directly. They feel it as tiredness. As awareness and memory combined with guessing what would happen, the brain began pulling material from the past to prepare for the future. Old experiences were reviewed to predict outcomes. Mistakes were replayed to avoid repeating them. This created a closed loop where memory fed guessing what would happen, and guessing what would happen kept memory active. The body might be resting, but the mind was busy connecting past and future without pause. In early human life, this loop rarely ran for long. In modern life, action is often delayed, optional, or unnecessary. The loop continues on its own. The brain stays busy because it was designed to treat unsolved futures as important. This is why modern humans often feel tired during moments of waiting, stillness, or no activity. There's no immediate threat, but the brain is quietly preparing anyway. Another evolutionary shift made this problem worse. Humans began guessing not just survival outcomes, but meaning and direction. The brain started asking where life was going, what should come next, and whether choices were correct. These questions have no clear answers. Guessing what would happen became permanent. The nervous system learned to live in a state of gentle preparation without completion. This state uses energy continuously. It doesn't feel like stress. It feels like mental presence. But presence without resolution becomes draining. When modern humans lie down to rest, guessing what will happen often becomes more noticeable. With fewer distractions, the mind turns toward what might happen later. Plans, concerns, and vague expectations come up. None of them need action now. But the brain doesn't know that. It treats future possibility as a signal to stay awake. This is why rest doesn't always feel restoring. The guessing system is still running. It was designed to prepare humans for action, not to exist with long periods of comfort and safety. In a world where the future is always open and rarely urgent, guessing what will happen never fully shuts down. The energy it uses builds up quietly, shaping the tiredness people feel even when they have done nothing at all. The final part of this section shows how guessing what will happen, once meant to be brief and useful, becomes a constant background process that quietly exhausts the human mind. In early human environments, the future arrived quickly. Hunger led to searching, danger led to escape. Guessing what would happen had a clear purpose and a clear end. Once action was taken, the nervous system could settle. But in modern life, guessing what will happen rarely meets its ending. Futures stretch far ahead and many of them never arrive at all. The brain still prepares as if they will. It stays busy because it was never designed to ignore possibility. For most of human evolution, ignoring the future was dangerous. So the nervous system learned to stay open, alert, and ready. This readiness costs energy even when nothing happens. Over time, guessing what will happen turns inward. The body reacts subtly, tightening muscles and sharpening attention. Even though there's no immediate demand, the tiredness that follows feels soft and unclear. Yet it builds up steadily. Guessing what will happen also learned to work without permission. It doesn't wait for a problem to appear, it looks for one. When none is present, it creates possibilities to stay busy. This behavior once protected humans from surprise. Now it keeps the nervous system lightly activated all the time. During moments of rest, when outside signals are quiet, guessing what will happen becomes louder. The mind looks ahead because there's nothing else pulling attention outward. It checks, plans, imagines outcomes, and revisits questions that have no answers yet. This process feels passive, but it's work. The brain is practicing without movement. The energy spent here doesn't produce relief because there's no resolution. Guessing what will happen doesn't know when to stop. It waits for certainty, but modern life rarely provides it. Another important shift happened when humans began living with long-term goals rather than immediate needs. The future expanded from hours and days to years and decades. The brain adapted by staying future-oriented more often. This adaptation increased survival and planning, but it also removed rest from the guessing system. The mind began carrying unfinished futures at all times. Even during stillness, the nervous system remained busy, holding open questions that couldn't be answered now. This is why doing nothing often feels uncomfortable rather than calming. The body pauses, but the mind remains oriented forward. Guessing what will happen fills the space left by action. It's caused by a system designed to prepare for what's coming. Now placed in a world where what's coming is rarely clear or urgent, the human brain keeps waiting, preparing and adjusting without release. This waiting uses energy quietly and continuously. Guessing what will happen was meant to guide survival, not to dominate rest. In modern humans, it does exactly that. It stays active when the body is still, shaping a deep, continuing tiredness that comes not from doing too much, but from endlessly preparing for what has not yet arrived. And this difference sits quietly beneath much of the tiredness people feel when they're doing nothing. The body is built to live in the present moment. Its signals are immediate and practical. Hunger means eat. Pain means stop. Tiredness means rest. Once a signal is addressed, the body can settle again. The mind works differently. As it evolved, it learned to move beyond the present. It learned to hold information across time, to compare moments, and to imagine outcomes that weren't happening yet. This gave humans a powerful advantage, but it also separated the mind from the body's natural rhythm. The body responds and releases. The mind responds and continues. In early human life, this difference was less noticeable because daily survival kept body and mind aligned. Physical effort was constant. Movement, danger, and social interaction kept attention grounded in what was happening now. When the body rested, the mind usually followed because there was little extra capacity to wander. But as human environments became more stable, the body began resting more often while the mind remained active. This created a quiet tension. The body entered stillness. The mind did not. From an evolutionary perspective, the mind had a reason to stay active. Even when the body was safe, the future was uncertain. The mind stayed alert to protect what the body couldn't sense directly. Over time, this alertness became normal. The mind learned to work independently of physical demand. In the modern world, this separation becomes clear during moments of rest. A person may sit comfortably with no physical discomfort, yet feel restless or tired. The body has stopped. The mind hasn't. It continues to process information, review experiences, and prepare for what comes next. The body feels calm, but the mind remains busy. This is why rest often feels incomplete. The body and mind are no longer resting together. This separation was never a problem in early human life because extended stillness was rare. The environment forced alignment. Modern life removes that force. People can remain physically inactive for long periods while the mind continues working at full capacity. The nervous system doesn't recognize this state as true rest though. It feels like something is missing. The body waits. The mind searches. Over time, the cost appears as tiredness. This tiredness is confusing because it doesn't match physical experience. A person may think they should feel rested, yet they don't. The reason is simple but deep. The body has stopped. The mind has not. Human evolution never provided a clear way to synchronize rest between body and mind in safe, quiet conditions. The two systems evolved to cooperate under pressure, not to relax together in comfort. This is why doing nothing can feel draining. The body enters a low-energy state. The mind remains in a moderate energy state. The difference creates friction inside the nervous system. That friction feels like tiredness without cause. It's not illness. It's not weakness. It's the result of a human design where the body lives now and the mind lives everywhere else. Until both systems rest together, the feeling of tiredness can appear even in moments of complete physical ease. As the separation between body and mind became stronger, rest began to lose its meaning for the human nervous system. And this loss explains why stillness can feel tiring rather than restoring. The body understands rest through physical signals. Muscles relax, breathing slows, heart rate settles. These changes tell the body that effort has ended. The mind doesn't receive rest in the same way. It doesn't rely on muscle tension or movement to know when to stop. It relies on resolution. When a situation feels finished, the mind can release. In early human life, most situations ended clearly. Hunger ended with food. Danger ended with escape. Conflict ended with distance. These endings allowed the mind to follow the body into rest. But as human life became less physically demanding and more mentally complex, endings became rare. Tasks extended beyond the present moment. Concerns carried over from one day to the next. Questions remained open. The mind stayed active because it had learned that unsolved situations needed attention. Even when the body was calm, the mind remained busy. This involvement costs energy. The body rests, but the nervous system stays partially activated over time. This partial activation becomes tiring. The person feels tired without understanding why. From an evolutionary standpoint, this behavior was logical. A mind that stopped attending to unsolved matters could miss important changes. So, the brain learned to stay alert until clarity appeared. In the modern world, clarity often doesn't come. Many concerns have no clear solution. Many responsibilities have no visible end. The mind waits anyway. It stays awake for answers that never arrive. During moments of physical stillness, this waiting becomes more noticeable. With fewer distractions, the mind turns toward unfinished matters. It reviews them quietly, not to solve them, but to keep them available. It keeps the nervous system from fully settling. The body may feel relaxed, but the mind feels suspended. This suspension is uncomfortable and tiring. Another layer of this difference comes from how the body responds to no activity. The body expects rest to follow effort. When effort is missing, rest feels unearned. The nervous system doesn't get a clear signal that stopping is safe. The body rests mechanically, but the mind remains cautious. It continues to watch, prepare, and judge. This creates an internal imbalance. One system rests, the other doesn't. The energy difference between them creates a sense of heaviness. People often try to fix this by forcing relaxation. But effort doesn't solve the difference. The problem isn't tension. It's lack of alignment. The body and mind evolved to rest together after shared strain. Modern stillness separates them. This separation was never tested over long periods in human evolution. The result is a quiet tiredness that appears during no activity. It's not caused by weakness or lack of discipline. It's caused by a system that no longer knows how to rest as a whole. Until the mind receives the same sense of completion that the body does, tiredness can continue even when the body has done nothing at all. The final part of this section shows how the long-term separation between body and mind reshapes the experience of rest itself, turning stillness into a subtle source of tiredness. In early human life, rest followed hard work so closely that the two felt inseparable. The body worked, the body stopped, and the mind stopped with it. There was no expectation to rest without effort and no environment that allowed long periods of safe no activity. Because of this, the nervous system never learned how to interpret stillness on its own. It only learned how to recover after strain. In the modern world, people often enter stillness without having used their bodies in a meaningful way. The body becomes quiet, but the mind receives no signal that a cycle has been completed. It continues to search for purpose, direction, or resolution. This search keeps mental energy flowing even when physical energy demand is low. The result is a strange internal imbalance. The body feels inactive, the mind feels restless. The nervous system experiences this imbalance as tiredness. It's not the tiredness of effort, but the tiredness of unfinished alignment. The mind keeps scanning because it evolved to support the body during action, not to exist separately during long periods of comfort. When action disappears, the mind turns inward and begins working on abstract material. Instead, it reviews thoughts, judges feelings, and looks for something to busy itself with. None of this produces visible movement, but all of it uses energy. Over time, the nervous system remains in a middle state. It's not fully active, but it's not fully resting either. This middle state is draining. It creates a sense of heaviness and dull tiredness that doesn't lift with simple rest. People often misunderstand this feeling. They think they need more rest when what they're missing is coordination between systems. The body is resting alone, the mind is not. Human evolution never required these two systems to work independently for long periods. They were shaped to respond together to the same pressures. Modern life removes those pressures but keeps the systems running. The mind doesn't know that. The body no longer needs its constant involvement. So it stays busy. This involvement becomes background noise. It feels normal, but it quietly uses energy. This is why doing nothing can feel more tiring than gentle activity. Movement reconnects body and mind. It gives the nervous system a shared rhythm again. Stillness leaves them disconnected. The tiredness that follows isn't a sign of damage. It's a sign of difference. The human organism wasn't designed to rest in pieces. It was designed to act and recover as a whole. When that wholeness is missing, rest loses its depth. The body stops, but the mind keeps waiting. And that waiting without action and without resolution becomes another reason humans feel tired even when they do nothing. Modern stillness looks like rest, but to the human nervous system, it often feels unnatural. And this misunderstanding explains another deep layer of why people feel tired while doing nothing. In early human life, stillness was rare and usually meaningful. It happened at night, during injury, or when hiding from danger. Each form of stillness carried clear context. Darkness signaled group rest. Injury signaled recovery. Hiding signaled alert waiting. The nervous system learned to connect stillness with specific conditions, not comfort. There was no concept of neutral, no activity. If the body was still, something important was happening. This connection became part of human biology long before chairs, couches, or quiet rooms existed. The body and mind learned that stillness needed attention, not relaxation. In the modern world, stillness appears without context. People sit for hours without danger, without injury, and without darkness. The nervous system doesn't recognize this as true rest. It doesn't receive the evolutionary signals that once allowed it to settle. Instead, it enters a state of mild confusion. The body is inactive, but the brain doesn't know why. With no clear reason for stillness, the nervous system fills the gap with internal activity. It checks posture, thoughts, sensations, and time. This checking uses energy. The person feels tired not because they have done too much, but because the nervous system has been quietly working to interpret an unfamiliar state. A still human in daylight without group protection or environmental signals would once have been vulnerable. The brain learned to stay alert during such moments. That learning never disappeared. Today, when a person sits quietly during the day, the nervous system acts as if something is missing. It waits for a signal that never comes. This waiting keeps it active. Modern stillness also lacks a natural ending. In early human life, stillness ended with sunrise, recovery, or movement. The nervous system knew when to shift stage. Modern stillness can last indefinitely. There's no clear boundary telling the brain when it can fully stop. So it doesn't. It stays partially active, conserving nothing. Over time, this partial activation becomes tiring. The tiredness feels different. From physical tiredness, it feels dull, heavy, and vague. People often describe it as feeling drained without effort. This is because the effort isn't visible. It's internal regulation. The nervous system is trying to make sense of a state it didn't evolve to handle. Another layer of this problem comes from how modern stillness separates humans from natural rhythms. Early humans rested in response to light, temperature, and group behavior. These rhythms guided the nervous system into rest. Modern stillness ignores these signals. People rest under bright light at irregular times and alone. The nervous system receives mixed messages. The environment says be alert. The body says be still. The mind tries to reconcile the two. That reconciliation costs energy. This is why modern rest often fails to refresh. It doesn't align with the conditions the nervous system evolved to recognize as safe and complete. Doing nothing in the modern world isn't the same as resting in an evolutionary sense. It's an unfamiliar state that needs interpretation. The nervous system stays busy because it doesn't know how to relax inside it. The energy spent keeping this involvement going appears as tiredness. This tiredness isn't a flaw of modern humans. It's the predictable result of placing an old system into a form of stillness it was never designed to understand. Modern stillness also removes the shared signals that once allowed the human nervous system to rest without fear, and this loss deepens the feeling of tiredness during no activity. Early humans rarely rested alone. Stillness usually happened within a group where others remained alert while one person rested. This shared watching reduced the individual burden. The nervous system could relax because responsibility was distributed. Someone else was watching. Someone else would react first. This allowed deeper rest even in dangerous environments. Over thousands of years, the human brain adapted to this social protection. Rest was safe because it was collective. In the modern world, stillness is often solitary. A person sits alone in a quiet room, disconnected from others with no visible signs of shared awareness. The nervous system doesn't interpret this as safety. It interprets it as exposure. Even if the person consciously knows they're safe, the deeper system doesn't respond to logic. It responds to patterns shaped by evolution. Alone and still once meant risk. So the nervous system stays partially alert. It listens more closely. It checks internal signals. It watches the environment even if nothing appears to be happening. This constant watching uses energy. The body feels inactive, but the nervous system is working. Over time, this work feels like tiredness. Another important change in modern stillness is the loss of clear sensory boundaries. In early human life, rest was supported by darkness, cooling temperatures, and reduced activity around the group. These signals told the nervous system it was time to shift stage. Modern environments blur these signals. Artificial light extends. Day into night. Climate control removes temperature changes. Screens and sounds continue during supposed rest. The nervous system receives conflicting information. Part of it prepares for rest. Another part stays alert. This split keeps energy flowing. The system never fully settles. Even when a person tries to do nothing, the environment doesn't clearly support that choice. The brain remains busy, trying to interpret whether rest is appropriate. This interpretation is tiring. Stillness also lacks physical grounding in modern life. Early rest followed physical hard work. The body had clear signals that effort had occurred. Muscles were used. Energy was spent. Recovery made sense. Modern stillness often follows mental activity instead. The body hasn't moved much. The nervous system doesn't register a completed cycle. It doesn't feel earned. So it stays cautious. The mind continues to work because the body hasn't provided a clear stopping point. This creates a loop where no activity leads to more mental activity, not less. The more still the body becomes, the more the mind tries to make up for it. This making up uses energy quietly. The tiredness that results is confusing because it doesn't match behavior. People feel tired after doing very little, but the nervous system has been active the entire time, managing uncertainty, isolation, and unclear signals. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. A human alone, inactive, and awake during the day was once in danger. The brain learned to stay alert in those conditions. That learning remains. Modern stillness recreates the posture of vulnerability. Without the protective context that once made rest safe, the nervous system responds as it always has. It stays busy and waits. It watches. This ongoing readiness drains energy slowly. The tiredness that follows isn't dramatic. It feels like heaviness, lack of motivation, or mental fog. It's the cost of a system trying to protect itself in a situation it doesn't fully understand. Modern stillness looks peaceful, but to an old nervous system, it feels incomplete and uncertain. The energy spent managing that uncertainty becomes another reason humans feel tired even when they do nothing at all. The final part of this section shows how modern stillness, when combined with long periods of no activity, creates a state the human nervous system was never designed to stay in for very long. In early human life, stillness was temporary and followed by movement. People rested, then moved. They paused, then acted. This rhythm kept the nervous system flexible. It knew when to switch states. In the modern world, stillness often stretches on without a clear reason to end. People can remain inactive for hours, sometimes days, without physical demand forcing a change. The nervous system doesn't interpret this as rest. It interprets it as waiting without instruction. When a system built for action is forced to wait without purpose, it doesn't shut down. It stays lightly busy, ready to respond. This readiness costs energy. Over time, the cost builds up. The body feels heavy. The mind feels dull. Motivation fades. None of this comes from effort. It comes from prolonged uncertainty inside the nervous system. Another problem with modern stillness is that it removes natural feedback. In early life, movement confirmed safety or success. A hunt ended, a shelter was reached, a group gathered. These outcomes allowed the nervous system to relax. Modern no activity provides no such confirmation. Sitting still doesn't resolve anything. The brain waits for a signal that effort is complete but none arrives. So it keeps watching. This with watching little is outside subtle. Demand. It feels attention like background turns toward thoughts and sensations. It keeps energy flowing. The nervous system begins checking the body, the breath, the mind. The more itself. The nervous system drifts this inward into checking was once useful during danger. This state is tiring because it's not meant to be constant without providing the stimulation of action. When it becomes constant, it keeps awareness. The system is caught in between. Awareness without modern purpose becomes draining. Also encouraged. The body may be relaxed, but the mind is still involved. This involvement uses energy quietly. People often feel this as mental fog or emotional flatness. They're not overstimulated. They're under-challenged in a way the nervous system doesn't understand. Another important shift is that modern stillness often lacks meaning. Early rest had context. It protected life. It supported recovery. Modern no activity often feels empty. The nervous system doesn't know what empty time is for, so it stays busy, searching for direction. This search doesn't lead anywhere, but it uses energy. Over time, the nervous system becomes tired from staying ready without reward. This tiredness feels different from physical tiredness. It's softer, harder to locate, and slower to lift. Doing nothing doesn't solve it because doing nothing is part of the problem. The human nervous system was shaped to rest after action, not instead of it. When stillness replaces movement, rather than following it, the system remains unsettled. This is why gentle movement often feels more refreshing than complete no activity. Movement gives the nervous system a familiar pattern. It restores rhythm. Stillness without rhythm leaves the system suspended. The tiredness that comes from modern stillness isn't a failure of willpower. It's a design difference. The human organism expects rest to be part of a cycle, not a permanent state. When that cycle is broken, energy drains quietly. This is the final reason modern stillness contributes to feeling tired while doing nothing. The nervous system doesn't know how to end waiting without movement. So, it keeps waiting, and the energy spent waiting becomes tiredness. Meaning was never meant to be a constant task. Yet for humans, it has quietly become one of the most draining sources of mental effort. In early human life, meaning was simple and immediate. Survival itself provided direction. Finding food, staying alive, protecting the group, and raising offspring gave life a clear structure. Actions mattered because they led directly to continued existence. There was little need to question purpose. The environment answered that question every day. As human intelligence grew and survival became more reliable, this structure began to loosen. The brain gained enough capacity to step back from immediate needs and ask broader questions. Why am I doing this? What does this lead to? What should come next? At first, this ability helped humans plan and cooperate, but over time it changed the role of meaning itself. Meaning stopped being something provided by circumstances and became something the mind felt responsible for creating. This shift placed a new demand on the nervous system. The mind began searching for purpose. Even when nothing was wrong, it treated meaning as another requirement that needed attention. This search uses energy. It requires comparison, judgment, and imagination. The brain scans experiences for importance, wondering whether they matter enough, whether they're aligned with some larger direction. In early human life, this level of thinking was rare because daily survival kept attention anchored. In the modern world, survival no longer uses most mental resources. The mind has space. That space is quickly filled with questions about meaning. When a person is active, these questions are quieter. Action gives the mind a temporary answer. When a person does nothing, meaning-seeking becomes louder. The mind turns inward and begins asking what this time is for, what it should be used for, and whether it's being wasted. These questions have no simple answers. They keep the nervous system busy. The body may be resting, but the mind is working. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. Humans who could assign meaning to actions were better able to cooperate, plan, and maintain social bonds. Meaning helped guide behavior in complex groups. But this system was never meant to run continuously without outside guidance. It was meant to support action, not replace it. In modern life, meaning-seeking often works without boundaries. There's no clear point where the search ends. The mind keeps checking whether life feels right, whether progress is being made, whether time is being used correctly. This checking becomes background activity. It doesn't feel urgent, but it never fully stops. The tiredness feels different from stress, though it feels like a low-level weight. A sense of being worn down without effort. This is because the energy is being spent internally keeping a search going. That can't be completed in the present moment. Early humans rarely had the luxury of asking whether their life had meaning. Their actions answered that question directly. Modern humans often have no such answers readily available. So the mind keeps searching. When a person lies down to rest or sits quietly, the absence of immediate purpose becomes noticeable. The nervous system doesn't interpret this as rest. It interprets it as lack of direction. It responds by increasing mental activity, trying to fill the gap. This activity costs energy. Meaning-seeking becomes a hidden form of labor. It runs quietly in the background, shaping thoughts and emotions without visible effort. This is why people can feel tired even on days when they have done very little. The mind has been working to answer a question it can't solve. Meaning was once provided by survival. Now it must be built internally. The human brain continues searching, judging, and adjusting even in moments meant for rest. This ongoing effort is one of the deepest reasons humans feel tired while doing nothing. As meaning shifted from something given by life to something humans felt responsible for creating, the search itself became a continuous mental effort that quietly drains energy. In early human communities, meaning was embedded in shared routines. Roles were clear, survival tasks were visible. A person knew what was expected each day, and fulfilling that role provided a sense of completion. The nervous system could rest because direction was external. But as societies grew more complex and individual choice expanded, that outside structure weakened. Meaning became less about meeting immediate needs and more about personal interpretation. The mind began asking whether actions were enough, whether they led somewhere valuable, and whether time was being used well. These questions have no clear stopping point. The brain keeps them open because they feel important. This openness keeps mental activity running even when the body is still. From an evolutionary perspective, this development had advantages. Humans who thought about purpose could adapt to changing environments, cooperate more deeply, and plan beyond immediate survival. But the cost of this thinking was never fully tested over long periods of comfort and safety. In modern life, meaning-seeking often works without interruption. There's always another comparison to make, another possibility to consider, another standard to measure against. The nervous system treats this search as unfinished work. It stays lightly busy, waiting for a sense of resolution that rarely arrives. During moments of rest, this involvement becomes more noticeable. With fewer outside demands, the mind turns toward judging life direction. It wonders whether progress is being made or missed. This judging feels passive, but it needs attention and energy. The body rests, but the mind remains busy over time. This imbalance creates tiredness. The tiredness doesn't feel sharp or urgent. It feels like a background heaviness, a sense of being mentally worn without clear effort. Another layer of tiredness comes from the emotional weight attached to meaning. When meaning is personal, it becomes tied to identity. Actions aren't just actions. They become statements about worth, success, or failure. This emotional charge increases the cost of thinking. Each thought carries importance. The nervous system responds by staying alert because what feels meaningful also feels risky. In early human life, failure often had immediate physical consequences. In modern life, the consequences are abstract but emotionally powerful. The brain responds to them in similar ways, though it stays busy to avoid loss of meaning, status, or direction. When a person does nothing, the mind often fills the space by reviewing these concerns. It asks whether rest itself is meaningful or wasted. These questions keep the nervous system active. Rest no longer feels like rest. It feels like delay. The mind waits for a sense of purpose to return before it can settle. This waiting is tiring. Meaning-seeking was meant to guide action, not replace it. When action is absent, the search has nowhere to go. It loops. It revisits the same questions without resolution. This loop quietly uses energy. The tiredness that results isn't caused by efforts in the physical sense. It's caused by the mind keeping a task going that can't be completed in the present moment. The human brain continues to search for meaning because it once helped survival. In a world where survival no longer provides clear answers, that search becomes endless. The nervous system keeps working even in stillness, and the energy spent searching becomes another reason humans feel tired even when they do nothing. Rest feels wrong to the human nervous system. Not because rest is harmful, but because struggle was once the condition that gave life structure and clarity. For most of human evolution, effort was constant. Survival demanded movement, attention, and cooperation every day. Food required work. Safety required watching. The nervous system learned to organize itself around this steady demand. Energy flowed toward action, and rest followed as a brief recovery before the next challenge. This rhythm shaped how the brain understands purpose and balance. Struggle wasn't something to escape. It was the normal state of being alive. When effort stopped, it meant danger had passed or resources were temporarily secure. Rest made sense only in relation to struggle. In the modern world, this relationship has been reversed. Many people live with long periods of safety and comfort interrupted by little physical demand. The nervous system doesn't recognize this as success. It experiences it as absence. Without struggle, there's no clear signal that life is working correctly. The brain waits for difficulty because difficulty once confirmed meaning and direction. When none appears, the system becomes unsettled. It stays active, searching for something to respond to. This search uses energy. The body may be resting, but the nervous system isn't satisfied. It expects resistance, effort, or challenge to organize itself. Without these, it drifts into a low-grade state of alertness. This state feels like tiredness mixed with restlessness. It's not tiredness from work. It's tiredness from lack of involvement. A human who stopped struggling entirely was often in trouble. Illness, injury, or exclusion could remove the need for effort, and those states were dangerous. The nervous system learned to connect effort with life continuing and effortlessness with risk. That connection remains. In modern life, comfort doesn't trigger relaxation in the way people expect. It triggers uncertainty. The brain doesn't know what to do with long periods of ease. It fills the gap with internal activity, creating problems, goals, or concerns to restore a sense of movement. This internal effort uses energy quietly. Over time, the absence of struggle becomes draining. The tiredness that follows is confusing because nothing obvious has caused it. People may feel unmotivated, heavy, or mentally dull. This isn't because they're lazy. It's because their nervous system evolved to work best when responding to challenges. Struggle provided feedback. It told the brain that energy was being used correctly. Modern life removes much of that feedback. The nervous system keeps looking for it. When a person does nothing, the lack of resistance becomes noticeable. The brain doesn't interpret this as peace. It interprets it as missing information. So, it stays busy, waiting for something to push against. This involvement costs energy. Rest becomes incomplete because it's no longer paired with effort. The nervous system doesn't know how to relax without first working. It wasn't designed for long-term ease, it was designed for cycles of strain and recovery. When strain disappears, recovery loses its meaning. The result is a subtle tiredness that appears during comfort rather than after work. This is the first reason rest feels wrong to a species built to struggle. The human brain expects effort to give rest its shape. Without effort, rest becomes empty, and that emptiness quietly drains energy instead of restoring it. As struggle faded from daily life, the human nervous system lost one of its most reliable ways to regulate itself. And this loss made rest feel incomplete and tiring. In early human environments, effort provided constant feedback. Muscles worked, breath changed, and outcomes were visible. The nervous system could measure success through physical signals. When effort ended, the body and mind knew why. Recovery followed naturally. But in modern life, many forms of effort are abstract, delayed, or invisible. Mental tasks replace physical ones. Outcomes are uncertain. Feedback is weak or absent. The nervous system doesn't get clear confirmation that energy has been used well. Without that confirmation, it doesn't fully release. It stays partially busy waiting for proof that effort has occurred. This waiting uses energy quietly. When a person does nothing, the nervous system doesn't interpret the absence of effort as earned rest. It interprets it as lack of involvement. The system expects resistance to organize attention and motivation. When resistance is missing, the brain begins to create its own. It creates worries, goals, and internal pressure to replace the lost structure. This internal struggle feels real to the nervous system. It activates the same pathways that once responded to physical challenge. But unlike real struggle, it has no clear endpoint. The body remains still. Over time, this difference becomes tiring. Another layer of tiredness comes from how modern struggle is disconnected from the body. Early humans struggled with their whole organism. The body, emotions, and attention moved together. Modern struggle often happens only in thought. The body sits still while the mind works. The nervous system receives mixed signals. Part of it senses no activity. Another part senses effort. This confusion prevents full regulation. The system can't decide whether to rest or be busy. It hovers in between. That middle state drains energy steadily. People feel tired but restless, calm, but dissatisfied. The nervous system isn't working incorrectly. It's missing a familiar pattern. Struggle once gave meaning to rest because it created contrast. Without contrast, rest loses clarity. The brain waits for the moment when effort has clearly ended, but that moment never arrives. Modern tasks blur boundaries. Work follows people into rest. Goals remain unfinished. Expectations stay. The nervous system stays alert because it can't close the loop. This constant openness keeps energy flowing. Even during no activity, the system remains involved. Over time, the cost appears as tiredness. Another evolutionary factor deepens this effect. Early struggle was shared. Humans worked together, hunted together, and protected one another. Effort was visible and collective. The nervous system received social confirmation that struggle was happening and that rest was justified. Modern effort is often solitary and internal. There's little outside acknowledgement. The nervous system doesn't register completion. It continues to search for signs that life is moving forward. When none are obvious, it creates internal motion. This motion feels like thinking, worrying, or planning. It's subtle, but it uses energy. This is why people can feel drained after days of no activity. The nervous system has been trying to recreate the structure that struggle once provided. It doesn't find it, so it keeps trying. Rest feels unsatisfying because it lacks context. Without effort, rest has no reference point. The system doesn't know what it's resting from. This uncertainty keeps it awake. The tiredness that follows isn't caused by doing too much. It's caused by a nervous system waiting for struggle to organize itself and finding none. Until effort and recovery are reconnected in a way the system understands, rest will continue to feel incomplete. The energy spent waiting for structure becomes another reason humans feel tired even when they do nothing at all. The final part of this section shows how a life with little visible struggle leaves the human nervous system without closure, turning comfort into a subtle source of tiredness. In early human life, struggle ended clearly. A task was finished, a threat was avoided, a journey reached its destination. These endings allowed the nervous system to release energy and reset. Rest followed naturally because effort had reached a stopping point. In the modern world, struggle rarely ends in such clear ways. Challenges dissolve instead of completing. Tasks shift rather than finish. Goals move forward as soon as they're reached. The nervous system doesn't get a signal that it can fully stand down, so it stays active. It waits for effort to return because effort once told the system that life was moving correctly. Without that signal, the brain feels suspended. It stays ready, alert, and unsatisfied. This readiness uses energy quietly. Over time, the energy drain appears as tiredness. Another important shift is that modern comfort often removes urgency. Early struggle had consequences. If effort stopped, survival was threatened. The nervous system learned to connect urgency with meaning. Modern life removes many immediate consequences. A person can pause without danger. The nervous system doesn't trust this. It keeps searching for urgency to anchor itself. When none is found, it creates internal pressure. This pressure feels like restlessness, boredom, or vague dissatisfaction. It's the system trying to recreate a familiar state. This internal pressure uses energy. The body may be resting, but the nervous system is still working. Over time, this creates tiredness that feels deeper than physical tiredness. The brain is carrying unsolved readiness. Modern humans often interpret this state as lack of motivation or low mood. But it's better understood as a system missing its evolutionary anchor. Struggle once provided structure. Without it, the nervous system floats without direction. Another layer of tiredness comes from how modern struggle is replaced by abstract pressure. Instead of physical resistance, people face expectations, comparisons, and delayed rewards. These forms of pressure don't satisfy the nervous system's need for clear involvement and release. The brain responds, but it can't complete the cycle. It stays open. This openness is tiring. Even during periods of no activity, the nervous system remains involved, waiting for a challenge that will organize energy again. Doing nothing doesn't calm this state. It often makes it more noticeable. The absence of struggle removes distraction, exposing the system's uncertainty. The nervous system interprets this as instability. It stays alert. The tiredness that results isn't caused by comfort itself, but by the loss of rhythm that struggle once provided. Humans were shaped by cycles of effort and recovery. Modern life stretches recovery without effort. Breaking the cycle. The system doesn't know how to rest without first being used. So it waits. And waiting without resolution costs energy. This is the final reason rest feels wrong to a species built to struggle. When effort disappears, rest loses its meaning. The nervous system remains busy, searching for the next challenge. Until that search ends, comfort will continue to feel draining. The tiredness people feel while doing nothing is the quiet cost of a system designed for struggle. Now living in ease. This final section doesn't offer answers in the way the human mind usually expects, because the tiredness being explored here isn't a problem to solve but a condition to notice. Throughout human evolution, tiredness usually had a clear cause. Hunger, injury, effort, or danger explained why the body needed to stop. Rest had meaning because it followed strain. But the tiredness modern humans feel while doing nothing doesn't follow that pattern. It appears without effort, without struggle, and without visible reason. This confuses the nervous system because it was built to understand tiredness as a signal tied to action. When tiredness appears without action, the system doesn't know how to respond. It looks for a cause. It searches for something wrong. That search itself becomes another source of energy used. From the beginning of human awareness, the mind learned to explain sensations in order to regain control. If tiredness could be explained, it could be managed. But this form of tiredness resists explanation because it's not the result of a single system failing. It's the combined cost of many systems doing exactly what they evolved to do in an environment that no longer matches their design. The nervous system stays alert because stillness once meant vulnerability. Awareness stays active because unconsciousness once meant danger. Memory keeps replaying because the past once protected the future. Guessing what will happen keeps running because ignoring possibility once carried risk. Meaning keeps searching because survival once provided direction. None of these systems are broken. They're working correctly according to old rules. The problem is that they're working together in a world that no longer provides clear endpoints. The body can stop moving, but the mind can't stop interpreting. The nervous system waits for signals that never come. This waiting uses energy quietly. Over time, the building up feels like tiredness, though. This is why the tiredness feels deep and difficult to shake. It's not located in one place, it's spread across systems. Modern humans often try to fix this tiredness by resting more, thinking less, or forcing relaxation, but effort doesn't solve a difference. The system isn't tired because it has done too much. It's tired because it hasn't been allowed to complete the cycles it was built around. This realization doesn't provide relief. It provides perspective. The question is no longer why am I tired when I do nothing, but what does this tiredness reveal about the kind of creature humans are? Humans didn't evolve to live inside stillness, abundance, and safety for long periods without structure. They evolved to move, respond, struggle, recover, and repeat. When that rhythm disappears, tiredness fills the space it once occupied. This tiredness isn't a failure of discipline or character. It's the quiet signal of a system living outside its original context. In noticing this, the human mind reaches the edge of explanation. There's no simple solution offered here, only an open observation. If tiredness appears even in comfort, perhaps it's not asking to be removed but to be understood. And if understanding doesn't make it disappear, it may still change how it's carried. The human nervous system continues to work according to old logic, even as the world changes around it. That logic has a cost. And the cost is felt most clearly in the strange tiredness that arrives when nothing at all is required. As this final section deepens, the focus shifts away from causes and toward what it means to live with a nervous system that never truly arrives at rest. Throughout human history, discomfort usually pointed toward action. Pain meant move. Fear meant escape. Tiredness meant stop and recover. But the tiredness described here doesn't guide action in the same way. It stays. It doesn't clearly say what to do next. This makes it unsettling. The mind looks for a fix because it was shaped to respond to problems. When no fix appears, the system stays busy. It keeps scanning, questioning, and judging. That involvement quietly uses energy. The tiredness deepens not because something is wrong, but because something remains unfinished. From an evolutionary perspective, unfinished states were dangerous. A threat not solved could return. A task not completed could cost survival. The nervous system learned to keep attention on what was incomplete. In the modern world, many things remain incomplete by nature. Questions about direction, identity, and purpose don't solve quickly. The nervous system treats these open-ended conditions as ongoing situations. It stays active because it doesn't know when it will be safe to stop. Even during stillness, the system waits. This waiting feels passive, but it's not. It requires constant readiness. Readiness uses energy. Over time, this becomes tiredness. Modern humans often mistake this state for weakness or lack of motivation. They believe they should feel rested because nothing demands their effort. But the nervous system doesn't measure demand the same way. It measures uncertainty. When uncertainty remains, the system stays alert. This alertness is subtle. It doesn't feel like fear or stress. It feels like background tension, a sense that something hasn't settled. That tension drains energy slowly. This is why doing nothing can feel heavier than doing something simple. Simple action provides direction. It gives the nervous system a temporary endpoint. Stillness without direction leaves the system suspended. As the mind notices this tiredness, it often tries to escape it. It seeks stimulation, distraction, or constant involvement. These behaviors aren't signs of weakness. They're attempts to give the nervous system something familiar to respond to: action. Even meaningless action feels better than unsolved stillness. But this doesn't solve the underlying condition, it only covers it. A deeper truth remains. Human tiredness in comfort reveals a difference between old design and modern life. It waits for struggle to justify rest, for endings to justify release, and for meaning to justify stillness. When these don't appear, tiredness takes their place. This isn't a message that something must be fixed immediately. It's a signal that something fundamental has changed in the human environment faster than the human organism can adapt. In recognizing this, the question begins to shift again. The issue isn't how to eliminate this tiredness, but how to live alongside it without turning it into another problem to solve. The nervous system is doing what it knows how to do. It's waiting and waiting in a world without clear resolution. Becomes one of the quiet burdens of being human. The final part doesn't close the question because the human nervous system itself has never learned how to close it. After everything explored so far, one truth remains quietly present. The tiredness humans feel while doing nothing isn't asking for an answer, but revealing a limit. A limit of design, a limit of adaptation. Humans carry systems shaped for danger, effort, uncertainty, and survival into a world defined by safety, comfort, and long stretches of stillness. The body adapts faster than the nervous system. The environment changes faster than evolution. The result is a form of tiredness that doesn't point forward or backward. It simply exists. When the body rests and the mind remains active, when awareness notices itself without purpose, when memory replays without resolution, when guessing what will happen waits without arrival, when meaning searches without confirmation, the nervous system does what it has always done. It stays ready. It doesn't know how to stand down without a signal that never comes. This readiness uses energy quietly, constantly. Over time, the energy spent waiting becomes tiredness. Not dramatic, not urgent, just present. Modern humans often interpret this tiredness as a flaw to eliminate, something to optimize away. But what if it's not a problem to solve? What if it's the natural sensation of living inside a system that has outpaced its original context? In early human life, tiredness ended cycles. It led to sleep. It led to recovery. It had a place. Today, tiredness often floats without function. It doesn't resolve. It stays. This staying feels uncomfortable because the human mind expects signals to mean something actionable. When no action appears, the mind keeps working. It keeps asking, At this point, there's no instruction offered, no solution given because solutions belong to systems that believe every signal must be corrected. This tiredness may not be asking for correction, it may be asking for recognition. Recognition that the human organism is living in a world it didn't evolve to fully understand. Recognition that stillness without structure isn't neutral. Recognition that comfort without rhythm can drain as much as struggle. When this is seen clearly, something subtle changes. The tiredness is no longer interpreted as failure. It becomes information not about productivity or discipline, but about difference, about a nervous system waiting for cycles that no longer exist. Whether humans will adapt to this new condition remains unknown. Evolution moves slowly. Culture moves quickly in the space between them. Tiredness appears not as an enemy, but as a signal that the human story is unfinished. And perhaps the final question isn't why humans feel tired when they do nothing, but whether doing nothing was ever meant to feel complete for a species that evolved to survive by never fully letting go. The final part of this section shows how meaning, when it has no clear source or endpoint, quietly turns rest into another form of effort. In early human life, meaning ended when the day ended. Tasks were visible. Success or failure was clear. The nervous system could release because it knew what had been done. There was little room for doubt. But in modern life, meaning rarely reaches completion. There's no natural signal that says enough has been achieved. The mind keeps searching because it was shaped to treat purpose as necessary for survival. When purpose feels unclear, the nervous system stays active. It doesn't relax into uncertainty, it tries to solve it. This effort continues even during moments meant for rest. When a person sits still or lies down, meaning-seeking often becomes louder. The absence of action creates space and the mind fills that space by asking whether this time matters, whether it should be used differently, and whether something important is being missed. These questions don't demand immediate answers, but they keep awareness busy. Awareness without resolution uses energy. The body may be calm, but the mind is still working. Over time, this creates a specific kind of tiredness. It's not the tiredness of doing too much. It's the tiredness of carrying an unfinished question. Another important shift is that modern meaning is often internal and private. Early humans shared meaning through collective goals. Modern humans often carry meaning alone. The nervous system interprets this as responsibility without support. It stays alert because something important depends on the individual. This sense of responsibility keeps mental activity running even during rest. The mind checks whether it's living correctly, choosing wisely, or moving in the right direction. This checking never fully ends. It has no clear criteria for completion. Meaning-seeking also lacks rhythm. Early life alternated between effort and recovery. Meaning was reinforced through visible outcomes. Modern meaning stretches across long timelines. Goals take years. Fulfillment is delayed. The nervous system waits. It doesn't know when to stop waiting, so it remains busy. This involvement drains energy quietly. People often feel this as mental tiredness without stress. There's no immediate pressure, yet there's no peace. The mind is occupied by something vague but important. Doing nothing doesn't solve this state because meaning-seeking doesn't respond to stillness. It responds to clarity, and clarity is often absent. The nervous system remains active, holding open questions that can't be answered now. Over time, this becomes tiring. Tiredness feels deep because it touches identity. It's not about what the body has done. It's about what the mind feels responsible for becoming. Human evolution didn't prepare the nervous system for a world where meaning is optional, abstract, and endless. It prepared it for survival-driven purpose with clear feedback. When that feedback disappears, the system doesn't shut down. It keeps searching. The energy spent searching becomes tiredness. This is why people can feel tired even on days filled with comfort and no activity. The mind has been working to answer a question that has no present solution. Meaning, once a guide for action, becomes a background task that never completes, and that unfinished task quietly drains the human nervous system, turning stillness into another source of tiredness.